Beautiful. How are you? Should have. Are you okay with me record?
Yeah, it's fine.
Thank you. So let me go over to our Facebook now. Oh my goodness. Thank you, Danny, for your patience of a saint today. Let me tell you. All right, here we go. And to Facebook. You can see me. I feel like I look more beautiful on this one. The other one I don't know what I look like. All right, let's see here. All right, didn't receive a code. We're almost there here. Technology. It's really special.
I love it.
I think so. All right. Oh, didn't send it to me. What the heck? Text me a login code. There we go. Four, 8-3. Okay, almost there. I don't know if you're looking at your phone for live or not. I'm going to be on my Facebook, my author page, but I'll. All right, hold on.
I'm just looking at this.
No worries. Okay, here we go. So we are starting to transfer over, and I will. We're moving on over. Let me just move this. And we are now live on Facebook, take 2, everybody. And it is great to be here. So my name is Dr. Amanda Helman. We are on the Amanda Helman author and speaker Facebook page. And this is the Traumaplicity show that usually goes at 7. I had some little issues. I couldn't see my beautiful face, and I could see Danny's beautiful face, but not mine. So we came back trying it now. And so Traumaplicity show is trauma plus simplicity. And what it means is not that trauma is simple, but that if we look at simple steps to heal step by step, it takes our brain to say, oh, okay, I can do this, that you can do this, that we can do this. And so I am really excited and honored to have Danny Smith Mathis on with me today in this group. She is an author, she's a writer, and she's an incredible mother, grandmother, and so many hats that I'll have her continue to add to, but I've had the honor to hear her speak and connect with her over the last year, and it's just a delight to have her. So thank you, Danny, for being on Traumaplicity Talk Show today.
Oh, thanks, Amanda. It's nice to be here.
Absolutely. And so, Danny, when it comes to trauma, I know that you have a story and you shared it, but what's a part of your story that you want to share with the audience today, part of your trauma story?
I guess there are 2 parts, really. The first part would be when I experienced my first traumatic incident with an adult, someone older than I. As an eldest child, I realized in retrospect that not shattered, but it began to put in question my ability, my reason for why I should trust adults. And as the eldest, I was totally trustworthy of adults. My parents were my best friends, even literally until the day they died. So thank God I was able to overcome that. But that's the first thing I think that I realized about trauma is when you're violated at a young age, it really does put in question, what are the adults doing? Why are they letting this happen to me? I'm young, I'm a kid. I wasn't even 10 years old when I experienced my first trauma. And so I realized that there is a lack of trust with authority, and it depends on how you recover from that. How you recover from that can take you very many places, or how you don't recover from that can take you many bad places.
That's powerful, Danny, especially you thinking about that childhood experiences and saying, wow, you know, how could even this happen with other adults to not protect me, or, you know, even the things I experienced. And then as a child who doesn't have language for it, it's amazing to me that all of us as children, right, if we've had experiences, can't even put language to it and have to go through that processing. And so you bring up a really good point about that recognition, you know, realization of what was going on with the adults, and how was I there and having to deal with this. Yeah. And really that brings up, I know like you've talked about your story, but that brings up, if we have that trauma, our whole world changes. We don't realize that we didn't deserve that. And yeah. So Danny, in your journey, and you shared it was in childhood and over a lifetime so far, there must have been different simple steps in your journey that has helped you get to where you are now. So in our audience, there may be people, women, men in this group that are looking at, how do I continue? Or maybe I'm just starting my journey. What are some 3 or 5 simple steps, that seem simple, but things that you have done that may encourage them to use or implement so that they can continue to heal?
Well, for me, my first step was writing. I wrote, my definition for writing is the process of staying sane in an insane situation. So for me, writing, I started writing at 9. That was 2 years after my first traumatic incident of abuse. And it wasn't until I was 10 years old that I was able to speak about it. So I think you have to, journaling can be very cathartic. It can help you through a lot of things: anger, confusion, bitterness, resentment, guilt. Because I think, particularly for children, people who have been abused as children, there's an element, and even in my situation, which the brunt of my abuse came during domestic violence during my marriage, so many years later. But now as I look back, there was still that element of guilt, meaning you always want to put yourself as the person who's responsible for allowing things to happen. And because none of it makes sense, and the only person you really have in that situation is yourself. And so you begin to tell yourself, maybe it was me, you know, maybe there was something I could have done differently so that wouldn't have happened or whatever. And the fact of the matter is, no, there wasn't. And the fact of the matter was, it wasn't your fault. And I'm not saying that we don't find ourselves responsible and accountable for certain things along the way. But I am saying that when people deliberately and intentionally abuse us, that is not our fault. So writing for me was the first thing I did, and I learned to do, and I embraced that, journal writing. The second thing I embraced was truth. And when you embrace truth, you find yourself often in a camp that is a lonely camp. Sometimes, depending on what truth you're facing, there are not a lot of people that are going to show up for that party. And when you decide to show up to your own party and face your own truth, that takes a lot of intestinal fortitude and courage. So you have to decide to show up to your own party and turn the lights on, because it's time for certain folks to go. And so the issue there is dealing with your own fear of showing up to your own party, embracing your own truth. And then the third step is to tell someone about it. You know, it's not like a shouting it from the mountaintop thing, just talk about it.
Yeah.
So for me, it was starting to write. And then in my writings, I started to hear and see and feel in the rhythm of writing and doing it my own truth. And then I realized this is not something that just can stay on a piece of paper.
Mm.
This has to be heard. So I have to use my voice.
Mm. It's powerful. So your first step was writing, and you continue to do that, and reflecting and journaling and all the different wisdom that you got navigating through that whole journey. And your second step, as you mentioned, was identifying. Even then, when you shared, I like how your analogy about the party, that not everybody's going to really be there with you when you're in this.
Mhm.
There might be people that have to go, or that you can't have in your life as you're healing, because you're going to a different level, which almost goes into boundaries. And then also your steps of, oh man, I'm like, I know you just shared it. Now I'm trying to remember it. I usually am
Oh, just the step of realizing that you have to deal with your own fear
Oh
of
yeah.
speaking about it, talking. You have to voice your hurt. You have to voice your trauma.
Oh yes,
A
thank
lot of
you.
people don't voice their trauma. A lot of
Yeah. And
people just won't voice their trauma. And sometimes, you know, depending on what the situation is, you're afraid of getting someone in trouble. You're afraid of getting in trouble. You could be afraid for your life and say, you know, I don't want to say anything because I don't know what that person's going to do to me or how this is all going to come back to me. And that's why I'm saying it takes a lot of courage and intestinal fortitude
yes, that really
to face your own trauma and not fear the fear.
yeah. So that's exactly it, where you said facing the fear, and then having your voice be heard, and getting to that place where you're going to share it no matter what. And
Right.
that does take time because of the factors you shared. Depending on the situation, there can be valid concerns of fear,
Right.
depending on the people that are involved, depending on where they're at and where you're at, and that's wisdom, right? That of how to do that when,
Right.
but definitely is important to have your voice. So that's powerful, Danny.
Mhm.
So if you're listening in the audience, and these are things that you might be doing, or perhaps you're starting to do, maybe you're just writing it down, but it's not, that voice still being unlocked. Hopefully this encourages you, from Danny, who has definitely gone through this journey, and is here and speaking, which is a testimony that it's possible one step at a time. Danny, for those who are in the beginning of this journey of healing trauma, or perhaps are in the middle, maybe they're on the verge of sharing their voice, maybe they're in the still overcoming their fears, what are some words of encouragement you would share with them?
Give yourself grace. Don't beat yourself up about the fact that you've maybe even decided, or you're starting to decide, to deal with your fear, face your trauma. That can be like deciding to lose weight, and it gets too hard to put in the work. And so it's easier to keep the weight on than it is to lose it. And trauma is your own weight. It's your weight. And at some point, you have to decide to lose that. And so you have to exercise faith. You have to exercise your own, mental and emotional toughness. And sometimes what happens is it's just like you can't develop something without exercising it. And so these are very intangible things as we see them, but yet they're the very things that compose us. And so we have it within ourselves to exercise. It's not just a matter of physical and outward exercise. There are inner exercises that we have to do. So I would say, don't be afraid to put in the work. Oftentimes we stay in places because we're comfortable, and we've learned to be comfortable in that place because we really don't know what is on the other side if we change, if we do something different, how it will look. We know what it looks like now, and oftentimes we just want to be able to see it. And oftentimes you can't see change. And it's difficult to allow yourself to go through that. So give yourself grace, let time have time to help you go through it.
So powerful. A lot of, exercising what we haven't seen yet, and also giving yourself grace, as you mentioned, Danny, and that trauma has a lot of weight that needs to be removed, and that we have the keys as we move forward. And it may seem scary because no one else has done it. Perhaps we always say, oh, that's just how our family's been, or oh, that's how it is with all these people for years. But that's not always the case. There's ways that you can continue to excel and unlock the weight, or like I love how Danny said that, just unlocking that weight that we carry. And sometimes it's heavy. It takes some time to unravel. But one little thing, before you know it, whether it's internal or physical, the more we do it, the more we'll see it. And it might go quicker near the end because we've done all that work, and bam. And, so sometimes it's gradual, sometimes it's, we've done the work and then it comes quickly. So I love that you said that, Danny. It's a great analogy and truth of what trauma is, that heaviness that needs to be taken out, perhaps from yourself for generations, and forging ahead. So thank you so much, Danny.
Sure,
and if you're watching this, just know that there is hope. And be proud of yourself. And if you're scared yet, and it's not, and you try to have your voice, and you're not a failure. It's you just exercising your vocal cords. So even if it is just you saying one thing, it's one thing that you've done in that stepping stone ahead, and that there are people there for you. There are people cheering you on, and make sure that you're one of the cheerleaders.
Yeah. Be your own cheerleader.
Yeah, be your own cheerleader. So
that's the hardest part.
It is learning.
Yeah, cheering ourselves on. Yeah,
absolutely.
I'm telling you, it's just like a diet, cheering yourself on.
Yeah. So Danny, I know that you have your website, the DannySmithMathis.com, on this little broadcast. Is there anything else you want to share with the audience if they want to get in touch with you? And I'll tag you on this little interview on my page, but is there anything else you want to share with them about you, or how to contact you, that we can leave them with today?
I do want to share this book. I don't know if you can see it.
Yes, I can.
It's called Survivors Celebrating Life Beyond Domestic Violence. I'll cover up my face so that everyone can see it.
Yep.
This book is really the Bible of surviving domestic violence, whether you're in it, going through it, or have gone through it. I am one of the 13 co-authors of the book. And I would highly recommend that book. Is on Amazon.com. And then if you're going through corporate trauma, because I have seen and experienced the correlation between domestic abuse and corporate abuse at the hands of people who have authority over me. And so if you're really interested or going through anything, I am a Black woman, so that it was my particular experience. So that is what I represent unapologetically. There are 2 books on my website that you can actually order. If you go to DannySmithMathis.com, you'll see on the front page at the bottom, there are 2 boxes, red boxes. You can click on either of those or both and order Shut 'Em Down, Black Women, Racism in Corporate America. And excuse me, it's almost my bedtime. I'm sorry.
You're
I'm sorry. I was sick all last week, and I'm just like a little bit behind. But no, it's all good. The second book is called Everyday Struggle. the impact of toxic workspaces on Black women and the hell Black women go through to keep a 9-to-5 job. And again, these are written by Black women, but I know there has to be some correlation to women, period. And so, again, go to DannySmithMathis.com and you can click on the 2 red boxes at the front page and you'll be able to order those books.
That's amazing. And I did write your website in the comments. So Danny, www.dannysmith.com. And I did tag you, Danny, but if you don't see it on my Amanda Helman author page, I will be sharing that, but I appreciate that. So certainly any of you women or men or whoever, if that is, certainly get those books, look at her website, look at those books, are incredible. And Danny's just really an incredible woman. So I thank you so much, Danny, for your time. And if you're and if you're watching this later, definitely we'd love to hear your comments if you have questions for Danny or myself. But this is a space, this Traumaplicity talk show. I've had a lot of women on just because that's the big focus right now, especially even with my book on complex trauma. But every story matters. And I want you to hear different perspectives, have different women on here with different backgrounds and stories and faces, and hear what they have to share. And you may relate. And I think the common factor is that we're not alone in this, and that even through the deepest of pain, things that are unimaginable, that there is hope. There are different women that I've had on that have gone through the trenches and they are still coming out the other side. And maybe perhaps you're still in it, or we can all experience saying, wow, like we're not alone. And so even if one thing, maybe you didn't have the experience that Danny had, but something stood out and you're like, yeah, my voice, or something, you felt like has tried to stifle your voice. Hopefully there's one or many nuggets that I've written down during Danny's talk, but certainly this is a space that's safe, that will give you encouragement, that goes through some heavier topics, but also gives you hope in what it might be helpful, and also to encourage you. So thank you, Danny, for being on here.
You're welcome.
And I hope you all have a great night. So thank you. Take care, everybody.
Okay. Good night. Good night.